It is a shameful thing when I hear people say, Happy Father's Day. I do not think that Africans deserve to celebrate Father's Day. Why? If the percentage of men do not participate in the life of their children, in the aspect of the growth and nurturing of their child, and they just ignore every responsibility to go to their mothers, what does it mean for you to be celebrated as Father's Day? You are just a sperm donor. An average African man blames their wives and women for every situation, for every condition, for every tragedy that happens in their life. And they say something in Yoruba adage, over 30 and 35 to 40% of the men who were in prison sexually abused a lady or sexually abused their daughter. Until you become a better husband, you can never be a better father. Hello everyone, good morning and welcome to the Men of Thought. Today's episode is not going to be so glamorous like it used to be. It's not going to be that joyful of the kind of conversation we are going to be having, because I dedicate today to talk to the men about the situations that have been going on in the country. It is obvious and very apparent that an average African man would blame their wives and women for every situation, for every condition, for every tragedy that happens in their life. If they don't complain about the government, they will make complaint about the women. It has now become our normal custom to blame women for everything that happens to African man. And it makes me wonder, is it the African woman that enslaved us in the first place? It's very obvious that there's disparity among men and women. Is it true that an African woman would also blame a man for every tragedy in her life? Yes. But if we, the men, make decisions to say we are the leader, we want women to be submissive, we are the one who is protecting and providing, we are the one who is supposed to take charge of the situations of the nation, why do we participate in the same game that women play? They say something in Yoruba adage, which it simply means it is the horse at the front that the back horse looks onto. Which simply means that probably the reason why women are blaming men is simply because they understand that men also blame women for almost everything. We may not be having the same discussion just like the way women do, but our actions are showing it that we blame women for everything. And that brings me to today's topic: men abusing their daughters. Before we touch on the subject of men abusing their daughters, let us talk about how men abuse their wife, because both of them are the same. In fact, there's no separation between those two things. An average Nigerian man, an average African man is not in the life of their daughter, is not in the life of their children. They make a claim that they love their children and they don't want the government to control their children, to tell them how their children should live their life. They want to have authority without responsibility. They want to have authority without being competent to be able to pass down the authority. Most men actually think that the only work they have as a father is to just provide for their children, and they neglect every other aspect of raising a child. And most especially, this affects not just the male son, but it affects the female dynamics, which is their daughter. And this also moves to the next generation, that when they become married, they have the same situation. I am always proud to tell people that I went to jail, not because it was a good experience, but because I knew I never committed a crime in the first place, and I was there because of certain false allegations. But the experience I had there made me understand one thing, that in life there are different places you can gather lessons. And I will say it without a shadow of a doubt. At Ikoyi prison, I realized something, in my estimation. Over 30 and 35 to 40% of the men who were in prison sexually abused a lady or sexually abused their daughter, or sexually abused a young girl. Grape here, grape here, grape, 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 grape. Especially the cell I found myself with armed robbers, kidnappers, murderers, and the rest of it. Most especially, the percentage of the people who were being convicted for raping a young girl were numerous. It was over 50% in the particular cell I found myself. And this is how you hear different things everywhere. Let me tell you a story about a man that I saw in the prison, and I'm just going to narrate this in a very short way. There was a man in the prison, they called the man Orieja. And the man Orieja was simply there, they gave him that title because that was the reason why he murdered his wife. The story was he has always been assaulting his wife. One day he gave his wife money for his wife to prepare food for him. When the wife prepared food for him, he wasn't around. His brother came. And when his brother came, the wife served the brother with the head of fish. And when this man came and his brother left, he asked his wife to serve him food. The wife served him food. And he asked, where's the head of the fish? Because he loved it so much. The wife said, your younger brother came. You told me your younger brother was coming, and I decided to entertain him. And in that, he requested for the head of fish. For me not to be arrogant, or for your brother not to feel bad, or to feel like I am making partial things, basically because of the kind of house they were living. So he probably had an idea of what she was preparing and requested for the head. She decided to honor the family, thinking that she could explain to her husband. This man started beating this woman, beat her to the inch of her life, and he killed her in the process. This story I just told you, I believe some of you might think that it's just something that I cooked up. If you go to Ikoyi prison in Lagos State and ask for Orieja, he lives in the E ward. He's part of the people that are convicted in the E ward. He's there. He's a very black, short man. This is reality. Now, what would have made a man make such thing? Killing his wife. In fact, let's now ask ourselves a question. He has children, and the woman bears children for him. And with the way the children are growing, they are never going to see their father again because he's already been convicted and he's going to be serving time, probably a lifetime. His case was still on trial before I was released. So with those trauma those children see, what do you think will be their relationship with men out there? And that brings me to today's topic. Men, have we taken our time as African men to realize that we are one of the biggest problems of what is actually hindering the progress of our nation, not just by our government issues or our leaders, but we failing the fact to understand that we are also leaders in our home and failing to take responsibility in the best way we can. An average African man chases after security, after money, and the rest of it, which is supposed to be his responsibility because it is the expectation of the society. But we failed just because we seek for money. We ignore the part of the humanity among us. We seek for wealth and we ignore the humanity and the next generation's well-being. And that brings me to reasoning. How can men wake up in the morning and thinking that they having daughters, their daughters should be sexually attracted to them? I was speaking on a subject yesterday when I talked about women, and I talked about how diaspora men should avoid dating certain ladies in Lagos, how they can get good women, how they can get women who still value their culture and traditions. But realistically, if 40 to 35% of people are in prison simply because they rape their daughters, they rape a young girl, the question is, what does it mean as an African? What does it mean as a people of a nation? What does it mean about our mentality and how we think as people? It is a shameful thing when I hear people say, Happy Father's Day. I do not think that Africans deserve to celebrate Father's Day. Honestly, I do not think that Africans deserve to celebrate Father's Day. And we ask ourselves, why? We deserve it if they celebrate Women's Day, Mother's Day. Why can't they celebrate Father's Day? When they celebrate Father's Day, I don't. I ignore Father's Day simply because if the percentage of men do not participate in the life of their children in the aspect of the growth and nurturing of their child, and they just ignore every responsibility to go to their mothers, if more than 70% or 60% of men are not taking that responsibility to participate in the growth and the well-being and the humanity in their child, what does it mean for you to be celebrated as Father's Day? You are just a sperm donor. A sperm donor is not a father. Just because you biologically pour the sperm and it gives a child, you haven't produced the aspect of you being a father. You might call yourself a man, but what is the work of a father? A father is one who protects and provides. Now, that does not end. And if we even have to put it in the aspect of protect and provide, what does it mean actually to protect? To protect simply means you're trying to instill something of value. You're trying to stop certain things that can be dangerous affecting your child. But as an African man, it is funny that even in today's 21st century, a lot of people believe so much that hitting their children is a very good thing. It is a way to instill values to their child. It is only an African mentality that they think that beating a child makes a child a better person. It is so funny that even those who are in the Western country, those who are in diaspora, that are Africans that are in diaspora, most of them still have that mentality that the only way to raise a child, to discipline a child, is to cane a child. I'm like, where did that mentality come from? Most of them will refer to the Bible. The Bible will say in the Yoruba version, it will say, which means that if you spare the rod, you spoil the child. What does it mean, spare the rod and spoil the child? Spare the rod is for people who actually came from slavery. In the Egypt books, in the Egypt culture and tradition, Egyptians never write, spare the rod and spoil the child. But Israelites were slaves in the land of Egypt. And so what did they know? They've always known that they are going to be tortured and they are going to be enslaved, and everything they use in learning how to communicate as people is through violence, because their oppressor would always cane them and discipline. It's not discipline, would always torture them every single time. And so they did it generation after generation. According to the Bible, it shows that the Israelites were slaves in the land of Egypt for over 430 years. So that means 4 generations and half. When it has been bestowed upon them, and then they have their liberation. Would you be surprised if someone now come from that generation who their ancestors have always been enslaved and say that spare the rod and spoil the child? You shouldn't be worried about it. You should know where that mentality is actually coming from. I was raised as a person today, and who I am today, I never needed to be flogged. Did I have certain people who disciplined me in my life? At some point, in a way. But I don't think in any way, shape, or form it actually made me a better person. The only reason why I am what I am today is based off how I decide to think and part of the values that I see in my parents. I adore my father. Why? Because my father actually took care of me. My father never raised his hand to flog me. My mother did at some point, but at some point she realized this guy, she can't, after I lost my dad, she can't continue to flog this child because this child is going to be rebellious. In fact, the moment she was doing it, the worse I was becoming. Let us now look at it in the generalization of an African. Everyone decides to beat their children anyhow. In those days that we used to live in face me, I face you, a lot of them would even keep swearing for their child. It's even part of aggression. They abuse their father's family. They abuse their mother's family. And before you know, the children are beginning to pick on all these attributes, all these values. I don't call it values, all these characters and behaviors, and think that when they take it and they want to build their own relationship, it is the best way for them to also address their spouse or their partner. I don't like using the word partner. Africans don't have partner. We have husband and wives. Because there's an hierarchy in every relationship. And if men fail in their leadership, then it destroys the family. So, most men today, it comes to my notice, and I looked at it, that it is very wrong for men to assault or beat their child. I don't want to use the word assault because that term tends to be for law. But beating, domestic abuse to their daughters, and it affects their children, your daughter, not just emotionally, not just physically, but mentally, psychologically. Every man who raises child is hand to beat his daughter actually destroys our emotion, it affects our mentality, and they take the same thing and they push it into relationship. In fact, most ladies believe that as an average African young lady thinks that a man assaulting and beating her and all of that is a normal thing. Why? Because that's what her dad used to do. Her dad does it to her mother. Her dad does it to her. I always say that it is always better for a man to discipline his son, because the body of that son is built to be able to accept it. Do I support it? No. I don't support it, but I believe that if a man disciplines his son, it is easier for him to understand. It is easier for him to match up that energy at some point. But when a man takes a masculine strength and put it on his daughter, which is just young and has not known anything, you destabilize them psychologically for them to think that this is normal. And most times, if you don't do it to them, you do it to their mothers. And then every single time we want to blame the African woman for this, for that, we always ignore the part that we are part of the people who are psychologically sending the message to our young women, and they bring this thing to their own generation and to their own spouse along the line. Men raping young girls. I don't want to mention the tribe that I know that are doing this particular thing according to the statistics that I saw in Ikoyi prison, because at the end of the day, people will say I'm being tribalistic. But these are a group of men of certain people. Now, are other people not doing it? Other tribes not doing it? Yes, they have, but it is rampant in a different culture and tradition for them to grip. And I ask, what is the benefit there? Why are they so interested in participating in it? Is it the issue of confidence? Is it the issue of being able to express yourself with the young woman? Is it simply because we have already come to a conclusion as people and we say that the grown-up girls, every single one of them, they are this and they are that, and so it is the young girls that are the best one? Most people will tell me, when they talk about my wife, they say that, what do I think is the best advice on how to get a woman, a good woman? I said the best way to get a good woman is to be the best man. You have to ask yourself a question. If I was a woman, will I date this kind of guy that I am? And if you see that, if you were a lady and you know your flops and your loopholes and your weaknesses, and you know that you wouldn't want to date somebody like you, then you should ask yourself, how should you improve yourself to become a better version? Because until you become a better husband, you can never be a better father. I don't know why it comes to this particular narration that people have today to say that I may not be a good husband, but I can be a good father. How does that come in your head? It's like I may not be a good human physically, but I can be good spiritually. It doesn't make any sense. One step before the other. You can't take the first step wrong. It's like boxing. You saying that you don't want to have footstep and you want to know how to box. No matter how good your hand is, if you don't know how to take the steps, you are going to be a loser in most fights of your life. The same way, if you don't take an approach of how to become a good man or a good husband, you are definitely not going to be a good father. 1,000,000%. Some people think that the way to be a good father is to shower their children with money. And I always say this, which the statistics always show every single time, that if men make decision to be absent in the life of their children, daughters also, specifically, they gravitate towards men very early in their life. They get pregnant very early in their life. Because absence also is another way to torture children. I'm just focusing this on the girl child. And in that absence, she's looking for a masculine energy that she wants to connect with. And if you're not there to be able to give her that attention that she actually seeks, she would seek it from another place. Because sometimes we always want to think that we are logical creatures. We are not logical. Every logic is focused on an emotion. Because if you don't care about something, you will not think about it. You cannot be logical about something you don't care about. And that is why emotion is the most important thing that every human being are going to move with in life. Let's leave logic aside. Maybe logic plays a big role in the society. But on the contrary, emotions is what lead us towards every direction and every decision we make as humans. And so you don't expect that someone needs something emotionally and it is totally absent in the life of an innocent child. And then you say that child begins to gravitate, and a lot of you will say that child is a shameful child. You played that part. And I want to make this, to just summarize this, I would say, African men, Nigerian men, wherever you are in diaspora, it is important, very important and necessary that men learn to work with their woman, regardless of the fact that you guys are separated or divorced. Learn to work together to raise a child. Learn to participate in the life of your children. Most times I'm in my room here and my children are in their room and they are with their mother and the rest of it. When they make decisions, they want to come in and they want to play with me for as long as they want to do, I have to let them do that. Are there times that I decide like, oh no, please give me a few minutes? It's not going to take more than 10 minutes because I know they need me. It is now that actually matters in the growth. It is every communication we have now that determines the future communication. Most men will not be in the life of their children when they are growing, and they expect that when the child grew up, they will just magically start communicating. When the children have already built a way of communicating or developing relationship with people outside their family, raising friends and discussing with other people, you become a natural stranger to them because they don't know how to be open up to certain things that they've been open up to outside people. And before you know, they take actions that they are not supposed to take, which you can't give them the guideline and the protection that they actually deserve or that you would have actually wanted them to have in their life simply because of your absence. And then most of you will start screaming that, oh, children adore their mother more than their father simply because the mother is saying different things negative things about their father, where we forget to understand that you were the one who was even absent, not to be able to instill your own information to the child. And so the child thinks that everything the mother told them was absolutely true, and you proved it by your absence. I would be rounding up with that, and I will still be visiting this on my episode before. I'll be giving an information on it. I think before the 30th of June, I will be releasing more details on this episode and information. If you haven't subscribe to my channel, like and share. Have a blessed day. Be a good man. See you in the next video. Adios, amigos.
When you are revolutionary and you talk the truth, people will come and slap you down. Then you talk the truth again, they lock you in jail. They never hear anything at all. Then go hear pansa pansa. When you are revolutionary and you talk the truth, people will come and slap you down. Then you talk the truth again, they lock you in jail. They never hear anything at all. Then go hear pansa pansa.